How you doing, YouTube? Side by side time. Rev side by side time in the form of their A Journey Down the Rabbit Hole series. This is a barrel-aged stout. Volume number 65. Over here we have volume number 66. And this one on my hand here is a Imperial Stout aged 7 months in Blanton barrels. And it was bottled 4/16/21. Today is the 8th of May. Over here, we have, like I said, number 66. It is an Imperial Stout aged 7 months in Blanton barrels also, but then on coffee, cinnamon, and coconut barreled 4/23. So you're talking about 7 days difference in bottling. Did they barrel age these till that time, then take this particular one, and that's when they rested on coffee, cinnamon, and coconut? That's my guess. So we'll see what's what. These comes courtesy of my boy Carson. If you don't know who Carson is, that's weird. You should go check him out. He does, he has a lot of irons in the fire. Let's put it that way. But he does Scotch for Everyone. That's how I know him originally, and then Homebrew for Everyone on Instagram. Go check him out. It is basically both of those handles, but with dots instead of spaces. So, yeah. I love these. These are my favorite. That's why I don't even put the... I should do this. I should kind of point forward the actual, label part of it where you can see what's being read there. But I got this kind of Twilight Zone kind of swirly pattern thing going on. And that makes me happy. So, Rev. Up there with one of my favorite barrel age programs, if not my favorite barrel age program in Florida. That's a tall order. There are a lot of good barrel-aged programs making big, huge Imperial Stouts. But ever since Carson has introduced me to these guys, I've really enjoyed what they've done. And, who doesn't want to do side-by-sides of huge barrel-aged, Blanton barrel-aged Imperial Stouts? Because that kind of makes sense. First curveball. Adjunct head retaining much, much longer. Doesn't look like that from you guys. I would imagine you probably don't see much of a difference. But that little ring that's on this sucker is sticking around way more. And there's this kind of spiral galaxy thing going on this one. So you'd expect them with all the adjuncts not to retain the head as much. Again, we're not talking about a big head to begin with on either of them. But worth noting. And that be motor oil thick. That's some, 10W30 right there. That's not synthetic. That's not like, you're a two-stroke oil gas mixture right here. We're talking... dense. Even when I gave it a big swirl, the head on this one kind of jumped back quite a bit more aggressive. Interesting. So let's dive into the base here. I mean, that is a big, bold, thick, rich bourbon barrel aged Imperial Stout. Done. Taco's crying because Taco wants to eat food, but Taco doesn't know it's not food time yet, so you'll get him whining in the background the whole video, probably. I don't even know if you'll be able to hear him with this microphone, to be honest with you. Man, that is classic. Like, classic. Big, burly, rich, probably decently bittering, roast-wise Imperial Stout with a really nice, rich, meaningful, purposeful kind of barrel to it. A lot of spirit, a little bit of char, a little bit of coconut, a little bit of vanilla, those kind of things going on, but it smells like a really well done bourbon barrel aged Imperial Stout. Let's see what we got going on over here with the adjunct version. You definitely get that adjunct. And the coolest thing about this, maybe not cool, but interesting thing about this, is that the cinnamon in this comes off absolutely like a mintiness for me. And that happens every now and then with these barrel-aged stouts. Because I don't know what it is. Just that combination, maybe it was the spirit and cinnamon, makes me think of mintiness as opposed to cinnamon. I don't know why it happens. Now, you're talking about coffee and coconut, too. I definitely get the coffee. The coconut, not really there. So there's a slightly minty, big coffee kind of component to it. The coffee's bigger than the cinnamon, but the cinnamon is a much sharper, more distinctful aromatic. That's what jumps out to me first, but the coffee's bigger and more robust. Coconut is completely lost there. Completely different noses. Completely different noses, even though you do get a bit of the spirit over here. With this being so kind of old school basic barrel, and I don't mean basic in a bad way, like a core 4+ barrel over here, and then you get the adjuncts over here with that coffee and that cinnamon really coming to a head. It's kind of a fun combination, let's put it that way. So, yeah. Just going to dive into the base first. Cheers. It's delicious. That's a bourbon barrel aged stout. Like a really well done bourbon barrel aged stout. And I know you're like, if you're watching me, well, I would say for the first time because I do this shit all the time. You'd be like, no shit, Sherlock. It's a bourbon barrel aged imperial stout. Give me more. Say more words. No. Because that's what it is. And I don't mean that, yeah, there's a nice roast component. There's chocolate fluttering throughout the whole thing. Multiple levels of chocolate. You get the bourbon, you get the barrel, you get that soft little coconut kind of vibe. That's there. And we'll explain all that. But this is a really well done bourbon barrel aged stout in the sense that, like, that's such a foreign concept. It seems like it's such a foreign concept nowadays. So many people won't even go, like, that's, like, too basic. Like, how basic are you? Bourbon barrel aged stout? Who does that shit? Well, apparently Reve does it. They do it well. I mean, it is nice. That stout is thick and meaningful, but still drinkable. It's not like super thick to the point where you're drinking like plasma or anything like that. The beer is still there. It's not overpowered by the barrel, but the barrel's pretty aggressive. Yeah. That's delicious. Chocolate, multiple levels of chocolate, like I said. There's that soft little vanilla coconut thing. It's more vanilla than coconut from the barrel. Soft little char. Bourbon comes through purposeful, meaningful, but not overly aggressive and hot. It's really a drinkable bourbon barrel aged stout. What's the ABV on this? Did they tell you? Did they tell you? Did I gloss over it? They don't tell you the ABV on here. See, what they do is basically the same labels on all our stuff, and they have these little stickers they put over them. And I love these bottles. I have to mention it every time. It's like Mickey grenades on steroids. I'm guessing 12 and change. Actually, 11 and change. Let's go. It's a little bit lighter. Let's dive into the adjunct, see what we say about that. Cheers. That's good. That's good. That's good. Because the coffee, again, is probably the biggest portion here as far as the grand scheme of things goes. It's not hyper aggressive. There's a nice roast to it. It's not cold pressed. But it's not over the top to where it's overpowering the beer. Oddly enough, it seems like the spirit over here is a little bit bigger. Not hotter, but just a little bit more sweeter and present. Maybe that's the coconut. Kind of adding a little sweetness, a little coconut sweetness to it maybe, or something like that. But it's definitely, it tastes like this beer with those adjuncts added, which is cool. Again, you'd be like, no shit, Sherlock. But it's, you'd be surprised how different a lot of people's beers will be with just a simple addition or two of adjuncts. That cinnamon is much smaller than I expected based off what I got off the nose. I said it came off like minty in the nose, and it absolutely did. It kind of loses its luster in the taste. Not in a negative way. I think it's actually, if it was as big as it was in the nose and came off as minty for me, and that's how I perceive it, which happens every now and then with these barrel-aged beers with cinnamon, it might be a little bit too distracting, so it comes off as just like a slightly added spicy element, almost like they use like a rye whiskey barrel as opposed to a base whiskey barrel, that kind of spiciness coming off. Mouthfeel is probably a little bit smaller over here, which is funny because the carbonation in the head on this was quite a bit more aggressive. These are fun beers, man. Honestly, it's such a fun side-by-side to do because they're just like, they're so similar yet so different. And that's why I did these side-by-side. I had to. There's been a couple times over the past when Carson or other people have sent me big burly barrel-aged beers, big huge stouts that are similar, and I'm just like, I don't want to do them side by side. And I drink one, I'm like, God damn it, why didn't I do side by? I really need to do these side by side because it speaks so much more volume to how delicious. This is delicious, and this is delicious on its own accord. I, personally, this is my winner over here. I'm going to sit here and be like, Core 4, old school FTW on this sucker over there. But it's such a fun brewery, because my favorite part about what Reve does is that they adjunct and they barrel age to add and enhance and make beers funner. They don't try to make a beer not a beer. You know, a lot of breweries and a lot of breweries in Florida do barrel age this and barrel age that, to where it's like you're not even drinking beer at this point. You're drinking, you know, candy batter that happens to be alcoholic, you know. And almost exclusively everything I've had from these guys has been barrel aged, but the beer has always been at the forefront. And I think that's a beautiful thing. You know, over here, beautiful Core 4 beer with a beautiful barrel character and spirit. Over here, Core 4 beer, well, a little bit more hidden, a little bit smaller. Still the leader in the clubhouse across the whole, you know, plane, the whole vector, coordinates, I don't know, of the beer. And the adjuncts are present, and the barrel and spirit is present. But again, it's still beer. It's still at minimum 51% beer. And just fun stuff. Let's do this one more time. Hiccups. It's so good. Adjuncts. The coffee really comes out so fast side by side on that. The coffee is definitely the biggest portion of the show there. And the last part, by law, it's law. It's in the Magna Carta that you have to cuvee stuff. I think so. Geneva Convention, maybe? I don't know. It's one of those two. Let's see what's what. Aromatics. Yeah. Smells like a mixture of the two. Who would have thunk it? Let's dive in. Cheers. I like them separate. It is a perfect mixture of these two. But you lose a little bit of that base versus barrel. Then the adjuncts lose a little bit of volume here. To where I think that's where the beauty lies in both these beers. I think the base versus the barrel over here is the best kind of interplay. And over here, it's how equal all the portions of the beer are. And I think you lose that in this little cuvee here. But very fun combination, but also carbonation. And very fun side by side. Thank you very much, Carson. Very cool stuff. So there you go. Let's talk about these beers. Are these some of the better barrel-aged stouts that I've had as of late? Yes. Are these some of the better barrel-aged adjunct stouts I've had as of late? Yes. Mount Rushmore status. As of late, yes. As of late, just on the outside looking in. There are other ones that just did me a little bit better as far as adjuncts go with the barreling, but it's worthy of being up there. Value to availability, no idea. Carson, let me know what's what, and leave you with, if you like what we like these beers. If you like barrel-aged stouts and you like barrel-aged adjunct stouts, but you appreciate the beer still being the star of the show, you'll like these. So there you go. Review in the books. Hopefully you guys enjoyed our review. Down there if you want to talk about it. Massive Beers if you want to check me out doing the social media stuff. Beer Massif if you want to check me out doing the whole podcasting thing. And hopefully you guys enjoyed our review. Hopefully you're enjoying a little bit of Reve right now. I said Reve at the end. Rev right now. We'll see you next time. Cheers.